Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the fascinating, powerful, and sometimes perplexing world of a single molecule. It shapes so much of what we do and feel dopamine.
That's right.
Our mission in this deep dive is really to pull out the most, surprising and impactful insights from Daniel Z. Lieberman's The Molecule of More. We want to truly grasp dopamine's profound role in human behavior,
Uh-huh.
from our deepest desires to our greatest achievements, and yes, even our struggles.
And it's quite a journey you're in for. It really might change how you think about motivation itself. We'll explore how this incredible neurotransmitter drives us relentlessly forward,
Right.
why it can sometimes lead down the path of addiction, and ultimately how understanding its dual nature can maybe help us live more balanced, more fulfilling lives.
Sounds like a real double-edged sword.
It is. It's both a blessing and a curse, you could say. A relentless motivator and often a fleeting reward.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the start then. The book introduces this fundamental contrast. Dopamine versus what it calls here and now, or H&N molecules. Can you sort of walk us through what these two categories represent? How do they influence our basic drives?
Absolutely. Think of dopamine as the more molecule. It's what pushes us to desire what we don't yet have, right? To seek out new things.
Okay.
And it rewards us when we pursue those novelties. But, and this is key, if we resist that drive, it actually makes us suffer.
Mm.
On the flip side, you've got the H&N molecules, things like serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, endocannabinoids. These are what enable us to truly savor, appreciate, and enjoy the present moment.
So it's about contentment with what is right now.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the core difference.
That's a really powerful distinction. And what's truly fascinating is how dopamine actually operates. The book highlights this thing called reward prediction error as its core mechanism. Could you break down what that means for our brains? How does it explain why we're always chasing that next big thing?
Yeah, this is super interesting. What's fascinating here is that dopamine responds not directly to the reward itself, you see, but to the difference between the actual reward and what we expected.
The difference.
Yes. So, like, a low expectation combined with an intense present experience, that's what really sends dopamine firing.
Wow.
At rest, it fires maybe 3 to 5 times per second, pretty slow. But when it gets excited, it zooms up to 20, even 30 times per second.
Huge jump.
Massive. And crucially, if an expected reward doesn't materialize, the firing rate drops to 0. And that, as the source notes, feels absolutely terrible.
Oh, I can imagine. So it's not just the reward, it's the surprise
Yeah.
of it being better than expected.
Yeah.
But then the book talks about how dopamine immediately tries to avoid these incorrect forecasts. It almost extinguishes its own pleasure.
Yeah.
Why would it do that? What's the deeper logic?
It's a bit of a shocker, isn't it, this paradox? Dopamine love more than anything else is reward prediction error, that jolt, that unexpected good thing. But then it does everything in its power to avoid such incorrect forecasts. The book suggests this isn't really about pleasure for pleasure's sake. It's a cold, hard survival mechanism.
Survival. How so?
Dopamine's ultimate goal, apparently, is to maximize resources, keep us alive, even if that means extinguishing its own pleasure to make future predictions more accurate. Better predictions mean better resource gathering.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that's quite something. And it really makes you think about broader philosophies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You mentioned Buddhism's second noble truth, suffering from desire, or Mogodot's happiness equation. How do those ideas connect here?
They connect really well. Both frameworks sort of echo dopamine's constant drive and how our expectations, or maybe our lack of them, dictate our pleasure or suffering. If your expectations are low, even a small positive event can flood you with that satisfying prediction error.
Okay.
But if expectations are way too high, even a huge achievement can feel flat.
Hmm.
Because dopamine isn't triggered by the outcome itself, but by that unexpected delta.
The gap. Yeah, that makes sense. Now let's bring this home with a really fascinating, relatable example the book uses. Love. Why does that initial passionate spark often seem to fade?
Yes. Love.
Our brains are literally programmed, it seems, to crave the unexpected, always looking to the future. That thrilling mystery of the unknown becomes the boring familiarity of the everyday once dopamine's initial job is done.
Exactly. And to really get this, it helps to think about 2 types of space the book describes. There's extra personal space things that require effort, time, planning. They're future-oriented, like pursuing someone new.
Right out there?
And then there's peripersonal space. That refers to things experienced right here, right now, close at hand, within reach. For love to last, the book argues, it has to shift from an extrapersonal experience to a peripersonal one.
Okay, so that shift is crucial. And the book makes this fascinating distinction about love itself. It talks about passionate love being very dopaminergic, exciting but often fading. What kind of love needs to take its place for a relationship to last? And how do our H&N molecules fit in?
All right, so passionate love is definitely dopaminergic. It's exhilarating, idealized, full of curiosity, very future-looking. But it seems designed to be fleeting, typically lasting only about, say, 12 to 18 months.
That's not very long.
No. So after that, for a relationship to really thrive, couples need to develop what the book calls companionate love. This is where our H&N molecules truly shine. They foster a love that's satisfying, peaceful, and experienced much more through our bodily senses and emotions. It's about comfort and connection now.
And the implications are pretty significant, aren't they? Especially for people who might be naturally high in dopamine.
They really are. The book suggests individuals with genes for high dopamine levels can struggle quite acutely with this shift. Moving from passionate to companionate love, it can be tough, sometimes leading them to seek new partners as that initial dopaminergic thrill fades.
Always chasing the buzz.
In a way, yes. And it's also telling that the book points out orgasm is almost entirely a here and now experience, firmly rooting it in the H&N realm. It brings even the most future-focused individual firmly into the immediate sensory world.
Okay, so we've explored dopamine's powerful role in driving our desires, shaping experiences, even love. But what happens when that relentless push for more takes a darker turn? The book argues dopamine is not meant to be an enduring reservoir of joy. What does that mean exactly?
That's a really crucial point. While dopamine absolutely drives achievement, it relentlessly leaves us wanting more rather than feeling truly satisfied or content.
Never enough.
Pretty much. It really brings to mind, Aristotle's classic observation that ultimately we do everything for happiness. But this dopamine-driven hunger for more money, more work, more stuff, it can quickly become this endless, utterly unsatisfying chase.
It's almost unsettling how powerful that drive feels, isn't it? The book talks about the mesolimbic pathway, the dopamine desire circuit, and it says it's activated not by actual need, but just by the presence of something attractive from an evolutionary standpoint.
Exactly.
So that feeling of wanting, it's not really a conscious choice we make. It seems like our brains are just hardwired for that more, even when logically we know better.
You've really hit on it. As the book puts it, kind of poetically, to travel, hopefully, is better than to arrive is the motto of the dopamine enthusiast. The wanting itself becomes the reward, often feeling more potent than actually getting the thing. And this leads us directly into the really complex territory of addiction.
Right. This helps make sense of addiction. The book explains it partly stems from the brain having trouble distinguishing between what we want and what we like. Addictive drugs, it says, essentially hijack the very brain circuits that are crucial for our survival.
They exploit the system.
Yeah. And what's vital to grasp here, the book emphasizes, is that addiction is not a sign of weak character or a lack of willpower. How does the source explain this often misunderstood aspect?
It's a critical reframing, really. Addiction is presented as a state where these desire circuits are essentially thrown into a pathological state by overstimulation. It's a brain-based disorder, fundamentally, not some kind of moral failing.
Yeah, it's important.
Very. The book even cites research showing that boosting dopamine artificially can lead people to make larger, riskier bets in studies. It shows how this desire system gets hijacked. And think about, say, video game designers.
Oh, yeah.
They often know exactly what lights up dopamine, right? Constantly displaying accumulating points, progress bars, keeping players relentlessly pursuing more. It taps right into that circuit.
Okay. But thankfully, we're not just slaves to this wanting circuit. The book talks about a counterbalance, the dopamine control circuit. This involves our frontal lobes, the neocortex. How does this circuit step in? How does it help us manage all this wanting?
Yeah, this is our brain's executive function stepping up. This control circuit is what allows us to comprehend, to model the world, plan, strategize, basically. It provides the means of dominating situations, as the book puts it.
Dominating situations.
In the sense of controlling impulses and directing action purposefully. Desire dopamine is like a little kid, shouting for his parents to look, look, every time something shiny appears. But control dopamine gives us the ability to plan, to delay gratification, and to act with tenacity. It's really described as the chemical of success.
Okay, so we've seen how dopamine drives us individually, impacts our goals. But how does this insatiable more molecule influence something as intimate as our relationships? The book mentions two distinct types.
It does. It highlights agentic relationships. These are described as somewhat cool, distant, focused on extracting resources, maybe gain or knowledge, very future-oriented, about what you can get.
Right, transactional, almost.
Well, could be seen that way. And this is contrasted with affiliative relationships, which are affectionate, warm, and pursued for simple, here-and-now pleasure, shared enjoyment. One's about achieving something through the relationship. The other is about enjoying the connection itself.
Now, here's a powerful, maybe uncomfortable truth the book presents. Dopamine pursues more, not morality. That's a strong statement. How does the author support that? Are there specific examples of how this drive for winning can override ethics?
The author is quite direct on this. It argues that dopamine's primary directive is simply to make you win, because winning is essential for evolutionary success. Simple as that.
Regardless of how.
Pretty much. This is why fraud, for instance, is suggested to be partly caused by this intoxication of victory. The feeling of winning is so powerful. The book even suggests winners cheat for the same reason that drug addicts take drugs. It's about the intense desire for that perceived reward, the win, overpowering other considerations.
Yeah.
Furthermore, it points out that dopamine-motivated aggression often have little emotional content. Unlike aggression driven by passion or H&N emotions, it can be colder, more calculated, focused on the goal.
And when it comes to controlling these powerful impulses, we're reminded that willpower isn't infinite. The book says it's like a muscle. It becomes fatigued with use. So just trying harder isn't always the answer.
Exactly. Which is why, when it comes to treating addiction, the source discusses approaches like motivational enhancement therapy, or MET. This tries to build motivation by encouraging patients to talk about their healthy desires. It works on the idea that we don't believe what we hear, we believe what we say. Get them to voice their own reasons for change.
Interesting approach.
And then there's cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which aims to arm individuals against those cue-triggered dopamine spikes, help them manage the triggers. But addiction is uniquely hard to treat because, unlike, say, depression, where patients almost always genuinely want to get better, with addiction, that desire for the substance can still be incredibly strong, fighting against the desire for recovery.
A constant battle.
It really is. That's also where the power of H&N factors like guilt and commitment to others comes in groups such as Alcoholics Anonymous. That social connection and accountability can be a powerful counterforce.
Okay, building on this powerful drive, the book then pivots to how dopamine enables us to truly shape our world, even leading to a surprising form of domination, as it puts it. This is where we see connections to creativity, even madness.
That's right. It gets really fascinating here. The book explores this profound link between dopamine levels and things like creativity and madness. It even suggests that entire cultures can be influenced by genetics and average dopamine levels.
Really? How?
Well, for example, it talks about the migration of people carrying the 7R allele. These are individuals who tend to produce more dopamine receptors. They're often bigger risk takers, faster learners, respond more intensely to wins and losses. Their migration patterns, like to the U.S., significantly boosted the dopaminergic gene pool there, potentially influencing the culture towards innovation and, well, more.
Wow, that's a big idea. And it's all connected to salience, right? The degree to which things seem relevant or stand out.
Exactly. Salience is key. When this malfunctions, maybe becomes too sensitive, it can create delusions, seeing connections and significance where there isn't any. But creative thinking, on the other hand, actually requires letting go of the conventional interpretations of the world, breaking apart those standard models. It's about seeing the world differently, finding new salience.
So it's like a controlled version of that altered perception.
In a way. And this ties directly into our uniquely human capacity for imagination and mental time travel. We can project ourselves into all sorts of possible futures, right? Make conscious choices based on these mental simulations. These models, which hopefully improve with experience, become the basis of wisdom, allowing us to learn from potential outcomes without always having to live through them.
And speaking of creativity in these mental models, let's not forget dreams.
Yeah.
The book suggests dreams actually embody creativity by drawing these unexpected connections between previously unrelated things in our mind.
Yeah.
There are even studies showing dreams can help find solutions to problems. Apparently, 70% of people who dreamed about a problem felt their dream contained a useful insight or solution. It really brings to mind that quote from Arthur Schopenhauer, "Dreams are brief madness, and madness a long dream."
It's a striking connection, and it's perhaps no surprise then that geniuses, whether they're scientists or artists, are often described as highly dopaminergic. But there's a potential downside. This high dopamine can sometimes suppress H&N functioning, leading these brilliant people to be, well, poor at human relationships. They might, as the book provocatively puts it, love humanity but not humans, often sacrificing their own personal happiness or close connections for the sake of innovation and big-picture progress.
That's quite a trade-off, and it's fascinating how dopamine even seems to influence politics and society. The book suggests we identify with our dopamine, our free will, that ability to weigh options, to consider higher concepts such as values and principles, is essentially dopamine's control circuit at work, allowing us to pursue those abstract ideals.
And the book goes further, exploring how some types of people tend to be more dopaminergic than others. It points to examples like, say, many Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, clearly driven by innovation, growth, the next big thing.
Right.
It even notes statistics suggesting celebrities are almost 6 times as likely to divorce compared to ordinary people, speculating this could be linked to high dopamine drives constantly seeking novelty. And often, a high IQ signifies a highly dopaminergic person, great for abstract thought, maybe less so for navigating the emotional complexities of everyday life where H&N sensitivity is key.
And the book even suggests dopamine appears to drive political sides. How does it frame that? We should be clear, we're reporting the book's perspective here, not endorsing it.
Absolutely. It's crucial to state this is the book's interpretation based on dopamine H&N differences. From his perspective, it characterizes liberals as tending to be more future-oriented, abstract, cerebral, perhaps more inconstant, creative, intelligent, but also more dissatisfied, wanting systemic help for the poor. Conservatives, by contrast, are described in the book as being potentially more comfortable with emotions and the present, more reliable, stable, conventional, perhaps less overtly intellectual, often happier, and preferring to provide help more personally on a one-to-one basis. Again, this is the book's framework based on these neurochemical leanings.
Got it. And here's a really chilling implication the book highlights. Distance. It says distance can have the same effect as dopamine. How does this play out, especially for people in power, like politicians?
It's a sobering thought. It means that being insulated, physically or emotionally, from the immediate consequences of decisions can make it easier to consider actions that might cause harm, but are justified for some abstract greater good. That distance can mimic the dispassionate, future-focused nature of dopamine, making those abstract goals seem more compelling than immediate present suffering.
That makes sense, unfortunately.
It also helps explain why highly dopaminergic people can have real difficulty feeling satisfied with their work, even after great success. It's the H&N neurotransmitters, the book says, that really tell us our work is done, allowing us to relax and actually enjoy the fruits of our labor. Without that H&N balance, it's just on to the next goal.
So after this incredible deep dive into dopamine's pervasive influence, the good, the bad, the complex, what does this all mean for you, the listener? How do we find balance in this constant push for more? The book introduces this really nice concept. Mastery is the point at which dopamine bows to H&N. What does that look like?
That's really the sweet spot we should aim for. True happiness, according to the source, requires a balance. It states, too much dopamine can lead to productive misery, constantly achieving but never satisfied, while too much H&N can lead to happy indolence, content but maybe not achieving much.
Right.
Happiness, it suggests, is found most often when people are simply paying attention to what they were doing, fully engaged in the present moment, whether that's eating, working, watching TV, or socializing. It's about being present.
So it's really clear that dopamine alone, that drive for more, can't provide satisfaction any more than a hammer can turn a screw. We absolutely need that H&N side, the appreciation of the now, to find true contentment and fulfillment.
Precisely. And the good news is there are actionable ways to stimulate our H&N side. The book suggests things like picking up a hobby, especially one involving working with your hands.
Like crafting or gardening.
Exactly. Or practicing activities with strong camaraderie, strong social bonds. Even creativity itself is presented as a fantastic blend. It mixes H&N being present working with materials. That sensory input with dopamine, the surprise and satisfaction of creating something new, something novel.
That's a great way to think about it. So to conclude our analysis, the book posits that dopamine is truly fundamental to what makes us human. It gives us this unparalleled power to imagine futures and shape the world in ways no other species can.
It's our superpower, in a way.
But the profound challenge, it seems, lies in our ability to overcome the seduction of endless dopaminergic stimulation and turn our backs on our never-ending hunger for more, at least some of the time.
Ultimately, the path to fulfillment, the book argues, lies in achieving a powerful synergy. Quote, it's sensory reality and abstract thought working together that unlocks the brain's full potential. That blend, that harmony, that's what we should be striving for.
What an incredible deep dive. It really highlights this profound dance between our desire for more, driven relentlessly by dopamine, and our capacity for appreciating the here and now, powered by our H&N molecules. This dynamic truly defines so much of our human experience.
It really does, shaping our relationships, our creativity, our societies.
So maybe a final thought for you to consider. Given dopamine's inherently insatiable nature, what small deliberate steps could you take this week to consciously, truly savor the present moment? And how might that simple act, that H&N activation, subtly change your ongoing pursuit of more?
Something to think about.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really encourage you to continue exploring these fascinating ideas for yourself.